Hello everyone, and welcome to our UDL lesson plan about the Colorado River drought. Some context about the plan itself is that the Colorado River drought currently supplies water to 7 western states and Mexico. Water levels have been on the decline, which has impacted many states. Through the use of technology, in this case Nearpod, students will be able to see the issue at hand, see how it has impacted several states, and what awaits these western states if no action is taken. This lesson plan was developed by the following students: Jamie, Tony, Nathan, and Lindsay. And because we don't have a specific high school, we decided to name the school NEIU High School. This is dated for April 11th, 2023, and it is for a 9th grade level biology class with a unit in environmental science. Some of the outcomes / objectives are based off of the ABCD model and are as follows. Number one, students will apply what they know about how the Colorado River compact and human impact is affecting water supplies by answering 7 questions about one state affected by the Colorado River drought. Students will be able to delineate and evaluate the argument and specific claims made in the presentation and assess whether the reasoning is valid and the evidence is relevant and sufficient. Number 3 is students will be able to decipher and utilize in verbal and writing form the arguments presented and the claims made, including valid logic and reliability of sourcing. Now, as far as materials and technology, so like Dr. Mendez stated, materials and technology go hand in hand. In this case, it does, simply because it's a technology-heavy lesson plan, and it starts off with the Nearpod. So Nearpod, if you don't know, is an interactive educational website where teachers can create interactive presentations, which can be embedded in videos, games, and activities. They can check for student understanding with the use of Draw It, polls, drag and drop, open-ended questions, virtual reality field trips, and quizzes. In this lesson, students will be assessed by the use of a worksheet embedded in Nearpod for the formative assessment and a Draw It activity for the summative assessment. Teachers can create their own lesson by uploading PowerPoint or Google Slides, PDFs, or videos. If the teacher does not feel like creating their own lessons, they can use lessons already created from the lesson library. The use of this technology will help engage students in the lesson. And so throughout the lesson, they will be on Nearpod, and to do that, they will have have access to some technology, which we'll get into in a little bit. As far as the worksheets, they will be embedded into Nearpod to make everything interactive. Students will need a pen and notebook to take notes, and the teacher will need cards for state assignments that will be placed on students' desks. Now, as far as the technology here is the usage of computers and or laptops, both from the teacher and the student, and they will need access to Nearpod. The last thing that we need is a projector. So the teacher will need a projector to project the lesson plan onto the board, in which the students will be able to follow on their computer or laptop, and which will make everything really interactive because it is through the website, and in this case, part of the lesson plan is a virtual reality field trip, which really will catch or at least pique the students' interest in the lesson itself, which will help for more engagement and hopefully a better outcome.
Okay, moving on to our prior learning connections. We feel there's several interdisciplinary levels of intelligences are hit upon in this lesson. A lot of it drawing from students' prior understanding from English class, from their STEM classes, and in conjunction with their history classes. We know that the Colorado River, was at one point the country of Mexico. So there's a lot of which I will get back to when we try to make it personal. We get back to that later. There's several avenues of inquiry we can go down here with this good lesson, talking about water conservation. like I said, the STEM lessons will hit upon quantitative measurements, literal quantitative measurements, water levels, things like that, having to do with volume, density, um, so on and so forth. And in science, Lindsay hit upon the water cycle, um, from vapor to clouds, etc. This is it's a explicitly strategic in that um, it hits upon all these intelligences. Um, Using Gardner's theory, kind of, we know that the group work is interpersonal. The avenues of technology are inclusive. Again, here for accommodations. We feel the lesson is appropriately challenging. We know that the ELL learners will benefit from the Nearpod interactive kind of VR lesson that Lindsay has constructed through her discipline. This kind of graduated prompting will be modeled by one of us, the teachers, in the virtual lesson. Then we can assess it in a formative assessment in group work, fostering a dialogical discourse, which again hits upon the interpersonal kind of intelligences of group work and dialogical discourses. We can also, this is also a good lesson for students with IEPs. We know that those students with IEPs learn at different paces, different levels, and through different mediums. Lindsay's lesson here is great, in that it does take multiple avenues of instruction, and it kind of lays it out in a modern kind of technological setting that I can speak from firsthand experience. These kids speak computer for sure, even the kids who need IEPs. She wants us to draw a lesson. She wants us to collaborate virtually. Again, we can take a virtual field trip, and we're trying to all of us school systems are fighting budgets, right? So none of us are going to really get to the Colorado River. And the videos are just, they break up monotonous lecturing and kind of talking. The polls are good too, because again, they're interactive, and they have a sort of competitive edge to them, where students always enjoy that kind of competitive edge and learning. I wanted to go over too the cast.org. A lot of this we took this into account. We have flexible means to achieve the assessment and the goals that we laid out. Like I said, these different kind of avenues of instruction allow for that. Plus, we also, in Lindsay, I believe we'll get to that, she will explain the group work and the activity associated with it that draws upon multiple intelligences, therefore making a great universal design, we think. Again, the materials in the environment are differentiated to the point where kids can maybe pick and choose where they comprehend the best. These are I have just included my ELA standards. Like I said, we believe this is a very good interdisciplinary lesson, and several other STEM and history and social studies standards were hit upon. But I think in my discipline, in ELA, the reading of the informational texts, this is a great lesson for that. Citing evidence, scientific method is similar to literary analysis in that you do have to make claims and cite evidence, and reasoning. You have to kind of delineate, really, to use the term, to quote the standard, delineate and evaluate the argument and specific claims in a text. this lesson does a great job of that. And furthermore, getting back to that, we're making it personally relevant. Like I said, I'm going to go out on a limb here for just like for ELL learners and specifically, a lot of my students in CPS speak Spanish. And this is a very good interpersonal kind of line of inquiry for them to take if they want to know about the history of Mexico, how Mexico once was Texas, California, etc., how Mexico gets its water now to this day from Colorado, and how we're all kind of intertwined in that too. Again, just an example of making it personally relevant. Obviously, all humans need drinking water, and that's a perfect example of making it relevant. But other than that, I'm going to give it over to Nathan now to go over the specific assessments and things like that, and then Lindsay will take the procedures about the actual formative assessment. And thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Nathan. I am the social science person within our group, and I'm here to talk kind of about both how social sciences could apply to a UDL lesson on the topic, and also how we would look at assessing learning from a lesson such as this one in the UDL framework. So first, I'd just like to kind of indicate that, I know we don't have to incorporate all the content areas into the lesson, but really this lesson is almost ideally designed in terms of topic to cover like all four of the areas. Of course, it's a natural science topic, but on the social science side, talking about human intervention in a natural system like what we see in this lesson and the impacts of that, it's almost perfectly suited to geography as a subject, and of course also history and economics can both, there's the two other major social science subjects, can very easily be incorporated as well. And within social sciences, we often learn about lesson techniques that would fit the UDL criteria in terms of multiple means of engagement. I do think Tony and also Lindsay are talking quite a lot about multiple means of representation, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the other ones. An example of something that could be done in this lesson from the engagement side would be either a role play or a simulation, which are two lesson ideas that we see in social science. For example, we could try to role play the original compact around the Colorado River to explain how this circumstance we see now has come to be. And then we could also do a simulation where we could say, could we do it better? Could we change, if we did the Colorado River compact today, what would we change? And why would we do that? Would we talk to different people? Would we change the allocation of the water? Would we maybe decide that we aren't going to take water from the river? And a whole bunch of other things. So these kinds of things would allow the students who are interested to kind of learn by doing instead of just by reading or watching videos or things like that. And then another thing that could be done is like a sort or a ranking system in which you could have students get up and they literally would put themselves in a certain order to describe like what's the most severe contributor to the drought, or what action is the most important for us to take. They could move to the separate corners of the room to have discussions with other classmates about subtopics, similar things. And so in that fashion, there would be another way for students, kind of both the engagement, but also the expression. And so then to talk about the assessments more specifically, we feel like Lindsay's going to talk about the sort of the basic procedure of the lesson, in which we're focusing on maybe the formative assessments for students and having the multiple means of representation through the Nearpod system. And I'm going to talk a bit more about the summative assessment approach, where we would try to create like a holistic mechanism for students to recognize or demonstrate their recognize the material in the lesson and demonstrate their knowledge of that material in a way that respects a variety of learning styles. And so this would all kind of fall under the multiple means of expression type. And so the idea that we had for showing understanding might extend beyond just the Colorado. It might extend to like a wider number of river systems in which we're talking about human intervention into those rivers. So again, we're seeing that sort of connection between the natural sciences and the social sciences. That it's kind of good because students have a chance to show mastery and understanding in multiple disciplines instead of being sort of siloed. So it's another reason that this lesson topic is really good, or we think it's good. So in terms of the summative, the idea was to create a graphic, and then you'd have 2 to 3 students in a group, and they would all contribute separately to the graphic. And so you could create an assessment that both rewards students' individual work, but also gives them a chance to work even better as a team or as a group. So if students do get stuck with a partner or a group of people who they don't want to work or don't want to do anything, they won't be overly penalized, but they could get like a bonus if they do work really well together. So here you're rewarding students who are really good at being teammates, or working and collaborating together, which itself is a skill that we could see in multiple means of expression. But yes, the students, so there would be like 4 different sort of areas in which the students would demonstrate their abilities, one of which would be creative representation. So they might draw something from their imaginations, like a meeting that happened or something that was there before humans were there. They could draw something from representation, which would be like the path of the river or the difference between the river now and the river before. They could represent something more quantitatively, like drawing out a chart or making a graph, or data point representation, which could be done with a device. So they would have that opportunity if they're fluent in that area. And finally, they would be able to write, where they could write an essay, or they could write a response to a question, or they could just explain something that occurred, explain a decision, explain a consequence or cause and effect relationship in those sort of more traditional academic standards. And so by having these multiple means of expression, we feel that the summative of this type would give the students a chance to be respected for their diverse ways to contribute. And also we could put these up in the classroom and everyone else could engage with and appreciate the different ways of learning that everyone in their class community is able to show, and we can reward and celebrate those contributions as well as illustrating the extent of knowledge that the students have.
For the procedures of the lesson, we will be using Nearpod. Nearpod is an interactive lesson. This is nice because it is customizable for the students, which will help with perception and representation. There's also varying methods for response and navigation, as you will see as we go through this. That allows for physical action under action and expression. There's multimedia for communication. So in here we have questions, facts, and a video for students to look through. That falls under expression of a communications for action and expression. You can enhance capacity for monitoring progress. You can go back and view students' responses and see where they might need help and where they might be doing really well. That falls under executive functions, again under action and expression. This minimizes distraction because students would be focused on just the Nearpod instead of multiple things at once. That falls under recruiting interest under engagement. And it promotes understanding across languages. It allows for translation, which is under languages and symbols under representation. So if we go to the actual lesson plan, the first thing that we start with is engagement. This will take about 3 minutes. So on slide 2 and 3, the students will draw the water cycle on the Nearpod slide. They can post that water cycle so other students can see and we can view it as a class. They will then answer questions on slide 3 about repercussions, about taking away rain from the cycle. So what happens to the water cycle if there is no rain? This is on a collaboration board. So if we look at the actual Nearpod and go to slide 2, students have the opportunity to draw the rain cycle. As you can see, we can draw on this slide. That falls under activate or supply background knowledge. So students should know about the water cycle. That's representation and comprehension. Again, once the student has submitted this, they can project it onto the screen and we can view as a class all of the different water cycles that students have drawn. The next slide is a collaboration board. So what happens to the water cycle if it doesn't rain? Students will share their thoughts here at the bottom, and then it will post as a post-it. You can either have students put their names up there, or it can be blank so that it's a little bit more anonymous. These collaboration boards are great because they develop reflection, which is under self-regulation and engagement. It also fosters collaboration and community, which is sustaining effort and persistence. The next thing we will do is during the lesson. So for exploration. So on slide 4, students are exploring the Colorado River through a VR field trip in Nearpod. If we go to slide 4, you can see here is the Colorado River. Students on their own screens, on their own computer, can drag and drop and view what the Colorado River looks like. This is really great for UDL guidelines because it allows for students to see things from a different perspective. If we go to the next slide, we go into facts about the Colorado River. So students are going to be asked to look specifically at the level of water at the picture as they are looking at that and predict what might happen if that level goes down. Next, we get into explanation. That will take about 10 minutes of the lesson. So we're going to learn new facts about the Colorado River. Many students probably do not know much about the Colorado River because we don't live very close to it. So they'll go over a few facts for more background knowledge about the Colorado River. And then we will watch a video. But before the video, students will be asked to pay particular attention to the population served by the river. So this pays particular attention to more of a math side of science. You'll see this is a very short video, 2.5 minutes. At the very end of the video, there's also a question so that we can monitor
more actions like this that become more drastic,
how much
more
students
extreme.
have watched.
And then we're going to be fighting politically over water. It is not a pretty picture.
So here's a question. What could happen if the drought in the Colorado River continues? This is also a very modern issue. This has just made the news again because of the drought in the Colorado River. They're wanting to redo water distribution for that. If we go to the next slide, we're going to learn some information about the Colorado River Compact. So in the previous slides, we learned about the Colorado River. In these slides, we're learning about the Colorado River Compact. This will be taken in their notes, so that is another mode of learning for students. They will have science notebooks, and they need to write down some of this information. So there's 2 slides concerning the Colorado River Compact, about where the water goes in each basin and how much is allotted. The following slide goes over what is happening with the drought and how that affects the Colorado River and those who need to get water from that. The last slide is a poll question. So this is a slide that definitely you can monitor and see how well students are doing. If they don't answer the question correctly, you can go back and do remediation. This is a very simple slide, but if some students are struggling with this is a great slide to go back and reteach some of the things if there are multiple students that are struggling. For the next part of the lesson, for after this lesson, we are going to do more elaboration. So students are going to get into groups of 4, which would be set up in the classroom. Each group is assigned a state on the Colorado River. And then there is Mexico also. If the class size allows, if there is a larger class size, we'll include Mexico in that as well. There's number cards on the table. Students will pull a number. Whatever number they get, they will have a responsibility. So for example, number 1s will be recorders, number 2s will be reporters, number 3s will be facilitators, and number 4s will be timekeeper. They will have their list of responsibility on the board so they know exactly what they're going to be doing. Each group is going to research the state that they were assigned and how that state is affected. They're going to complete a worksheet with 7 questions on that worksheet. That worksheet is attached below. These are the 7 questions. Where is the water coming from? Where does it go after it leaves your state? According to the compact, how much water is allotted to your state? How many people get their water from the Colorado state? How much water goes to agriculture? What are some other major uses in your state? what could happen if there is not enough water flow through the Colorado River. After they are done researching and answering all of those, we will go over these as a class so students can learn about each state. It's very interesting how each state differs so greatly. So the reporter, which had the number above, will share their findings with the rest of the class. And that is our lesson for the Colorado River. Thank you.